Welcome back. This is Dr. Divya Bharathi, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Sri Sharada College for Women, Autonomous Salem. Today we are here to discuss on the topic lichens. These are otherwise called as lichens. So what are lichens? Lichens are dual organisms. These are mutualistic organisms which are gift of nature. It is a very interesting topic today where lichens play a major role in environmental condition. Each and every day we face environmental degradations and environmental causes where we find most of the environment is being destructed. What is the role of these lichens? How these are formed? What are these? And how can we identify these organisms? What is special about it? It is very interesting to know, and let us move forward. So coming to introduction, lichens are derived from a Greek word known as lepres, which means treatment of skin diseases. These appear like peeling skin that are found attached on rocks, tree barks, etc. These are also called as Schwanner's, which has dual in nature. These organisms hold a mutualistic relationship between two major groups. These are algae and fungi. These are intermediate stages which hold each other together. So what is mutualism? So mutualism, to be generally categorized, it is a benefit of two organisms without any harm to anyone. So both get gain of the benefits. Here, lichens are also such organisms. For example, as we can see in the picture, these flowers are pollinated by the insects and insects get their nectar from the flowers. So this is an example of mutualism to be easily understood. So to look on lichens, what does algae and fungi do in this mutualistic relationship? For example, algae are the food source. Since algae produces their food by itself. Algae produces the source of carbohydrate where fungus contributes itself by spreading its hyphae into the firm substratum and holding the organism, absorbing nutrients and minerals from the soil, rocks, etc. So this relationship between algae and fungi are very special, and these relationships play a major role in survival of them in the fittest. And these are in scientific terms called as phycobiont or photobiont and mycobiont. So let us look over what is photobiont. So photobionts or phycobionts are generally called as algal partners. For example, phyco means it represents algae. Photo means light. So using light, it produces its food. As said by the topic, algal component in lichen is known as phycobiont. And lichens produces food for fungi as it contains chlorophyll. As we see in the picture, there are a cortical layer where a rich source of photobionts which produces food and a medullary layer. And these are very special characters of these lichens. Next is the mycobiont. The fungal components of lichen is known as mycobiont. Mycology, study of fungi. So, some organisms which contribute for the equal life are called as mycobionts. Fungal components produce shelter to algae and absorbs water and nutrients for the substrate. And to talk about lichens, there are four different types of lichens, namely crustose, foliose, squamulose, and fruticose. As per the name, you can differentiate these lichens and you can identify them according to their place and according to their structure. Let's see one by one. The first one is crustose. Crust, what do you mean by crust? This is the surface of earth or rock. For example, crustose lichen forms a crust which strongly attaches to the substrate such as soil, rocks, tree barks, etc. Any hard surfaces which is suitable for the growth of lichens will contribute the first growth called as crustose lichen. That makes separation from the substrate impossible without destruction. When we look at the structure of the crustose lichen, it consists of a cortical layer, an algal layer, and a medullary layer, as we saw before in the photobiont. The upper cortical layer is differentiated and is usually pigmented. The algal layer lies beneath the cortex. The medulla fastens the lichen to the substrate and is made up of fungal hyphae. As these fungal hyphae are found at the lower portion just for the attachment. The surface of crustose lichens are branched cracks that periodically close in response to climatic variations. You can find these crustose lichen all the way along wherever you find rocks. Wherever you find rock-like materials, have a deep look on it. You can find white patches or yellow patches spreading on it. These are the only organisms which play a major role getting attached to the rock surface or the crevices. Even a drop of water is suitable for the survival. As these have mutualistic relationship, algal and fungal components contribute each other, supporting each other for a survival of fittest life. Next, foliose lichen. Foliose lichen are the flat leaf-like lobed structures. These are not firmly bounded to the substrate, but it grows on the surface of rocks, trees, etc. These lichens typically has a distinct upper and lower surface, which is easily differentiated, which is usually covered with cortex. Some lack a lower cortex. The photobiont layer lies just below the upper cortex. Why photobiont layer has to lie just below the upper cortex? Because when light is sensed, what has to happen? The production of food takes place where the photobiont layer produces carbohydrate for further survival. Foliose lichen are attached to their substrate either by hyphae extending from the cortex or medullary region or by root-like racines. Some foliose lichen attach only at a single sprout peck. These are called as holdfast. Typically located near the lichen center, the lichens with this structure is called as umblicate. So to easily understand, foliose lichen is a leaf-like structure which is firmly attached to the substrate. It can be attached to the substrate by rhizin, which is a root-like structure, or through a holdfast, which is found at the center of the lichen, which is called as umblicate. You can easily identify this foliose lichen as these are papery leaf-like structure which will be attached. These are used in the culinary food of Indian culture also. We look over it in the economic importance of this lichen. Squamulose lichen are composed of small, often overlapping scales called as squamules. They arise from the substrate and appear leafy that lichens may appear to be like foliose lichen, but are differentiated as the lower side which lack cortex, as foliose lichen do have cortex. So it looks like foliose lichen, but to differentiate, there is a cortical layer in foliose lichen and squamulose lack these cortex region. Squamulose lichen are composed of flattish units that are arranged tightly and clustered. They are like an intermediate between crustose and foliose lichen. So the next advanced stage is the fruticose lichen. Fruticose lichen are characterized by shrubby or bushy coral-like outgrowths. These are beautiful structures. When you see it in nature, it looks as a sea coral hanging on the treetops. These are formed as symbiotic relationship. It is formed from phycobiont, green algae, and mycobiont. The fruticose lichen are not a monophyletic and holophyletic lineage. Fruticose lichen have a complex vegetative structure and are characterized by ascending bushes or pendulous appearance. Fruticose lichen can endure high degree of desiccations. These grow slowly and often occur in habitats such as tree barks, on rock surfaces, and on soils of Arctic and even mountain ranges. So let's look at the reproduction process of lichen. Reproduction in lichen takes place by two major roles, that is sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, fragmentation plays a major role where the thallus structure breaks down. With the photobiont and the mycobiont, they separate and these form new species or new growth, new lichens. This may happen when a piece of thallus accidentally are broken. It may be man-made or by animals or by nature. Anything, if it is broken into pieces, if it has a suitable condition to regrow, these definitely regrow on the crevices on the crust surfaces. These also have specialized structures called as isidia and ceridia, usually carried out this type of reproduction. So next is the sexual reproduction in lichens. Lichens undergo sexual reproduction. Tiny spores are produced within the fruiting bodies called ascus. The asci forms inside the structure called as ascomata. The most common type of ascomata is called as apothecium. These are small disc-like structures. In sexual reproduction, only the fungal partner is reproduced. There is no role of the algal partner. The spore that germinates must find the appropriate photobiont in order to form new lichen. So the role of mycobiont is more in sexual reproduction when compared to asexual reproduction. Since this is undependable type of reproduction and vegetative reproduction of lichen is very much important. Hope so we understood what is reproduction, the types of reproduction, the role of fragmentation, the specialized cells such as Escherichia, Choroidia, and sexual reproduction, and the role of mycobiont in finding its photobiont. And let's look over what is the role of lichens today. Lichens act as pollution indicators. What do you mean by pollution indicators? These do not control pollution. So what happens? This is what we call as whenever a region is being affected with high contamination or the atmosphere has high content of less oxygen and other gaseous substances, you cannot find the growth of lichens. It indicates that there is more sulfur peroxide where it is a pollution indicator. If you find there is no lichen growth in that region, these are called as regions with high pollution. Next is lichenometry is a technique that is used for dating of rock surfaces on which certain lichens grow by means of their rate of growth. So lichenometry is a technique in which you can identify the rock and the date and how long it has been, what is the progression rate of the rock, everything can be identified using this lichen colonies. The lichen colonies, places that have not had any previous growth such as, and these lichens are very much advanced species as they can colonize each and every blank spot wherever it is left open. If it is suitable for growth, you can find growth of lichens as these are good colonizers. Lichens are associated with cyanobacteria as the photobiont, which provides and fixes nitrogen to the environment. Ecologically, lichens are important for providing food and shelter to wildlife including deer, mooses, elk, and reindeer mosses, everything, squirrels, mice, bats, etc. These are food providers. Lichens contribute to the background diversity of natural landscape, and these play a major role in bringing up a new hierarchical species. After the growth of lichens, we can find a good change in development of other species such as bryophytes, pteridots, and angiosperms. These are the first sources of plants that grow on the flat rock surfaces. So let's look on the economic importance of lichens. Lichens serve as an important source of food for humans across the world. For example, in the ice-aged regions where you can, such as Arctic, Antarctic, where you can find no plant to be grown, there are growth of lichens as these are unpolluted areas and these act as food for the animals. And these island mosses are the important source in North America and North European continents. Based on the size of these lichens, geologists are able to study the ages of rocks, the characters of rocks, and the important mineralization changes that has been taken place on the surface of the rocks. Since ancient time, these species are well known for various coloring agents, and these are good sources of natural dyes. For example, in chemical industry, identifying the pH plays a major role. Even today, every agricultural land is in need of identifying the pH level. And these are indicators, and the sources obtained from these lichens are used as pH indicators in many laboratories. For example, in graduation studies of students, litmus paper is used for their local practical examinations, where litmus paper are made of these lichen components. Lichens also serve as biodegradations. By these degrade the polyesters and the harmful metals such as lead, copper, etc., and it reduces the pollutants as to save nature. Lichens hold a great economic importance in environment in several ways. Some species of lichens are regarded with conversion of rock into soil, which helps in formation of soil, improves the quality of soil, and also enriches soil required for plant growth. Lichens also play an important role in nitrogen cycle by fixing atmospheric nitrogen to the soil. To move forward, biodegradable and non-biodegradable substances. The role of lichens. As a part of pharmaceutical industry, one of the rising industry even today, lichens are widely used by various cosmetic industries and are also a natural medicine for various types of skin diseases and rashes. These chemical components are obtained from the lichens that are found around us, and we have got good sources of lichen in unpolluted areas. Some species of lichen are used for degradation of pathogens and other environment reservoirs which causes certain dreadful infectious diseases both in plants, animals, and also in humans. Infectious diseases. They are also a great source of food for the aquatic organisms and are widely used as an anti-infective agent in pharmaceutical industries. These produce antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory properties, which are very much needed for today's scenario as we are in a growing world of pharmaceutical industry and we step up into nature. I thank you for listening to my slides. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I've got some quizzes for you to be answered regarding the presentation, and I've given the notes as description for your reference, and kindly follow us for the same. Thank you.